Oh, okay.
We're here. Good
Okay.
morning.
Good morning.
I love tech difficulties. Good morning. Welcome to Thursdays with Culture Talk, where we go live to talk about the business of workplace culture. I am Cynthia Forstman, and I am here with Teresa Agresta,
Good morning.
my co-founder and business partner at Culture Talk. If you're new to Culture Talk, we have built a tool set that allows you to demystify what organizational culture is and puts the power in your hands to design and transform it. We have certified a network of 175 practitioners in, what is it, Teresa, 23
23. Yeah,
countries?
23 countries. Yeah.
Yeah. And they use the framework we've built to develop people, teams, culture with intention. So that's who we are. And we like to have some provocative conversations here and really kind of question the status quo once in a while. And if you're here listening in today, we've titled this whole session, Which Comes First, Culture or Engagement? And it's a bit of a chicken and egg, right? Something we've been talking about now for a couple of months. And we're doing some really specific targeted research around culture and engagement. And we'd actually love to hear what you think about this chicken and egg. And specifically, if you are an HR leader listening now or listening later, we're going to drop right now, Isabel, if you would, a link into the comments for this stream that asks just a handful of questions. I think it's 5 to 7 questions about engagement surveys. We want to hear what you think about them, how they work for you, and maybe where you're stuck. So that's one way we've been doing research. Teresa, we've also been
We've been on
out
the
and about.
road.
Where have
Yeah.
we been?
We have been to Boston, to the Talent Summit in Boston. That was in September, where we met a number of HR and talent leaders and began this inquiry, listening for what were their experiences, what were some of the holes or the things they were needing, and what were they experiencing around engagement and culture. From there, we've had a couple of executive forums. We've hosted a CHRO happy hour in Denver, where we introduced this idea that culture can be made into a tangible tool. And we all along the way have been picking up evidence and feedback as part of this research around this relationship between culture and engagement. And then just this month, we were out to Vegas and we had a booth and we talked to a lot of professionals in from entrepreneurial startup folks to mid-sized companies, all in the HR space in some capacity, and looking to find solutions. Really there to understand what tools were out there, and we asked them as well to weigh in on this conversation around culture and engagement. So it's been a journey over the past few months here, 6 months really.
Yeah, and I feel like if we were going to like sum up some of the things we're hearing, whether we're talking to enterprise, CHRO, local companies here in Denver, entrepreneurial startups, there's a couple of themes that are starting to emerge from the conversations. And I want to talk about three of them. The first is we are getting a resounding yes to the question, is the culture torch, has the culture torch been handed to you as an HR leader? Yes, it has. I have a new title called the head of people in culture, or I have a VP on my team who's literally responsible for the culture. And even though that torch has been handed, we also hear, hey, it's not a one person endeavor or a one department endeavor. Culture really belongs in the hands of all of us that are in an organization. So that's one of the themes. Um, Second theme is, even though I've got the culture torch now, it's a little bit like a hot potato too. Like, what do we do? How do you work on culture? So because I don't know necessarily what to do about culture, I might have this nagging concern that I'm hearing things in the background that there's a problem with the culture, but I don't really have a tool set or a methodology or a way to start addressing that. And so we've been putting it on the sidelines, right? We're going to deal with that culture thing later. And really, when we're going to deal with it is the third theme. It's like after we find out how we did on our engagement survey.
Right.
After we get our engagement survey, then if we find out
If
there's a
we need
problem,
to. Yeah.
then we're going to do something with it. Yeah, and we've grown to like really appreciate some of the value that an engagement survey brings to bear, right? So
Yeah.
we are
A piece
hearing.
of data, right? It comes with a score, and that can feel helpful to have something to hang your hat on, a number, a score, and understanding whether that's going up or down and where, maybe in certain areas. So it kind of tells you what is happening
Yeah,
in the organization or amongst the people. It
right.
answers that question around what.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing too that it's being added to kind of a lot of CHRO dashboards when it comes to their key performance indicators is how are we doing on engagement? Because we can measure that over and over year
Right.
after year. And to your point, Teresa, see is it healthy? Is it moving in the right direction? Or is there a potential problem with
And I
it?
think another thing we're seeing and we've heard is that, hey, there's a line item. We know every year we're going to get budget to do that. And so we've got, the mind share, the people are expecting it, whether they like it or not. That's one of the questions that we've got. But we've got time carved out and money carved out for this. And so it has become, to some degree expected, part of our delivery, part of our, as you said, we got handed this
Third
torch.
quarter. Yeah, third quarter, it's kind of baked into what we're going to do this year. And as we're listening, as we're getting feedback, as we're hearing what HR leaders are struggling, and again, we'd love for you to take the survey because we want more data. We want to understand really what it's like. But we have started to develop a different point of view around this. And so when it comes to the chicken and the egg,
This is a good week to talk about chicken and egg.
it is Easter week. We stand very firmly in the belief that culture comes first. Culture comes first. And if we spend time in our organizations focused on building a culture, building a vibrant culture, and doing it with intention, that engagement is a natural outcome of that our engagement scores, if we even took a year off from measuring how engaged are we and only focused on what's going on in our culture, how do we define it, and where is it stuck, and what are the beliefs and behaviors, which is the work we're doing at Culture Talk with
Right. And
Baseline.
how do we develop a story with your data? How do we
Yeah.
take, the what and really understand the underlying drivers of that, which is the why? Because without the why, it's really hard to know how to change it, how to approach it, what the motivators are, and what those hangups are.
Yeah. So we feel like looking at culture and doing a baseline culture audit can also give context to understanding where different parts of the organization are misaligned or engaged. And we thought to, we said on this call, we were going to say, when's a good time to start focusing on culture? How do you enter a cultural intervention? And so let's start, Teresa, maybe with an example talking about
Sure.
one of our Culture Talk clients who's been with us for a long time, has a number of people trained in their organization and are using Culture Talk specifically alongside their engagement survey.
Sure. Yeah. And I think this is a great story because it says we value the engagement experience and the engagement survey, and we are taking steps to address that. But the first thing they did was to actually measure the culture. and then create common expectations and behaviors and a language around that. So here's kind of the trajectory that they took. So this is a managed services and data networking organization that grew very quickly through acquisition. So they went from being, a handful of locations in 4 metros to now being 20 locations across 9 metros. There's a lot of growth. And we all know, acquisitions challenge culture, growth challenges culture. So the beauty of what this organization did is they actually started with a foundation of understanding who we are, what our driving motivators are, what is our culture, what expected behaviors are we looking for in this culture.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Because I want to just get to the actual pain point that said we have to do something about this. And I understood that there was like conflict between two merged organizations. Like the two companies that came together were kind of like batting.
Yeah, well, that was absolutely one of the issues that we don't understand what the problem is, but we understand that there is a problem. And so bringing together those two cultures, especially along the original merger, was a key issue in measuring the culture. And one of the outcomes of that is in measuring what's happening in different locations within the organization, that they were able to understand, where that lack of engagement or what appeared to be sort of a fall off in engagement was happening. And come to find out that they had two distinctly different approaches to managing workplace culture that showed up in the way that they were treating one another, responding to one another. It showed up in that real tug of war or frustration that they were experiencing and trying to work together. And when they were able to uncover that it really was a cultural mismatch and understand what are the drivers, one came out of a sage culture where they wanted information first, things to be lined, all the ducks in a row, factual, based in research. The other was a lover culture where they were prioritizing relationship. Couldn't understand how cold it felt to work with this other group. Once they understood their primary cultural orientations were different, there was a huge understanding and the ability to create connection and very quickly deepen engagement on both teams and between teams.
Yeah. Yeah. Because so much like when we're experiencing tension, often it's unspoken, like there's this unspoken nature to it. We don't know why. And so in this case, uncovering those cultural differences suddenly gave them something tangible to work on.
Right.
Here's
And
the
a
why. Here's the
language and a
underlying why.
framework,
Yeah.
right, to understand where the disconnect was coming from. So again, getting to beyond the what, hey, we have an engagement problem, to
Right.
understand the why.
Right.
We're looking at the world from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And that was just the beginning. So, the opportunity was for this, organization to continue building from there. So they built behaviors that outlined this is how we treat one another in both offices. This is how we are expected to show up. And we will measure your alignment with with this culture code, with these expected behaviors, and really started them on a journey where recognition was aligned with culture, promotion was aligned with culture, and the ability to figure out now when we measure engagement, what is the story that we can tell with those data points?
Mm.
In fact, the story of that culture is is another link that we're going to put below, a little video taking a look at a brief feedback from the leaders there to share how they see the two tools kind of working in collaboration with one another.
Right.
How the outcomes from the engagement scores are so much more meaningful now that they can align them with what the story is that's unfolding in the culture audit. And so having the narrative and the themes that go with the culture audit to go with the numbers and the data that are coming out of the engagement survey.
Yeah.
So the two that really work well together.
Yeah. And so Isabel, you're going to drop that link, Isabel supporting to drop that link to the video in the chat, in the comments as well. But there's one line out of that video, Teresa, where Paul Myatt talks about the difference in terms of how he thinks about the engagement survey, what he's measuring versus what he's measuring when he uses the culture talk assessment.
Yeah. It's a great line. It's about the engagement survey being a thermometer, right? So what's the temperature? And the culture audit being a barometer. Which way is the wind blowing? Where's the pressure coming from? So you want both, right? You kind of need both measurements. It's not very helpful to understand what the temperature is today or this hour, because that's going to keep changing. What's changing it?
I want to point to, because something I hear HR leaders say when they get their engagement scores back is, not knowing what to do. Like, it's almost like a guessing game. Did our engagement scores go down because of remote work? Did our engagement scores go down because we had to trim back our benefits because of industry things? And they're sort of stuck guessing. And it's not that external stuff doesn't impact engagement, but it is not the sole driver of why people are motivated and engaged, right? It's not, whether or not I can bring my pet to work is not the driver of what makes me feel like part of this organization. So, I think doing the baseline culture audit in lockstep with engagement surveys gives us, as you said, a more complete picture of what's going on in the culture and what specifically to do about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. There's Isabel saying that her stream didn't load either. So she also had technical difficulties. So yes, she is posting the link to the survey below right now. And let's just give one more quick example here, Cynthia. So let's talk about another organization, sort of another starting point for somebody deciding to do some culture work. In this case, this is a federal agency that took a look at their annual scores coming out of the FEVS, which is Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey, right? So similar to those annual scores we get back in an engagement survey, perhaps in the private sector. And those scores were telling an alarming story, but they didn't give, again, the instruction for what to do about it or how to address it.
It wasn't good. Right?
It wasn't good, right? And bad, like fix it.
Good, bad, and it wasn't good.
Yeah. So the desire to create shift, culture change, was really an imperative in this instance. And so this agency undertook a culture audit.
And right before you say that, because we again promised, like, what is a good entry point for cultural intervention? So in this case, it was engagement scores that were low, turnover that was high, and new leaders that came in to lead this organization and were literally handed the culture torch.
That's right. Very, very literally. Yep.
Fix it. Okay, proceed.
Right. And so then the fix it, sort of deer in the headlights, like how? What do we do? And so what they did was begin by doing a culture audit that defined the current state, that looked at what is the profile of our organization today, what's working, showing up in strength, we don't want to let go of, what's not working, dragging us down, showing up in shadow, we need to change. And so they designed a clear picture of the status quo, as well as an aspirational culture that would support the goals of the agency, including engagement, right? So lots of things and engagement. And then designed a culture shift action plan to begin taking those steps. The key component of it, I want to mention, is a culture code. Again, back to a written document that outlines the expectations and how those expectations align with our aspirational culture. So clear marching orders.
So tangible.
Very tangible. Yes.
So tangible. This is how we get from A to B. These are the specific steps and all the people that need to be involved to get us from A to B. And when you talk about the culture code being expectations, I feel like it's also an agreement. And at
Right.
every step along the way, every employee in this agency has been invited to step in and agree and to take it on and to
Right.
say, I also want to work in an organization where it's the kind of culture I want to come to every day. I want to be a part of. And so a key component of this culture shift program was not just looking at the organizational system, but looking at what were the individual storylines of every employee in that organization and how do I personally need to shift and change and show up in a different way to support where we're all going.
Right.
So very much, that inextricably intertwined individuals and organizations. And again, what I love about that is it's not like a new benefit I got. It's a personal decision to opt in to where we're going together.
Right. Right.
Very
And when
powerful.
you opt in, you know what you're opting into. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that HR leaders are hungry for. Clarity around what is this culture torch? What it has been handed to me. And if I'm the one that's supposed to shepherd it and share it and, lead it and bring it out to the organization, how do I talk about it? And how do I describe it? And how do I hold people accountable to it? So all of that requires the tangibility that we've been talking about. It requires a common language and the opportunity to measure
Methodology. Yeah.
against it.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And that's the tool set that we have built at Culture Talk is a way to turn culture into something tangible that we can measure, manage, and lead. And both of the organizations that we've referenced this morning, they have internal teams that have come through our certification and onboarding program to learn how to use the tool set, which includes assessments, it includes all kinds of coaching materials, ready to go workshops,
Yep.
etc. If you're interested in finding out how to bring this tool set into your organization or into your clients, feel free to reach out to Teresa or I. We're both on LinkedIn pretty much every day. And we have an opportunity coming up in April. We're going to be kicking off our next certification and onboarding program. Isabel, if you could drop the link to that as well into the comments. Teresa's been teaching a compressed version
Of
of
course.
the certification all week. And so congratulations and welcome to new clients at CS Arch and at Taproot Earth who are choosing to bring this into their organizations. We'd love to talk to you about how we can help support your culture journey with the tool set we've built. Any
Beautiful.
parting comments, Teresa?
Yeah. No, that was a great conversation. We'll continue on this journey. We'd love to get your feedback in the research below. It's a short survey. I promise you it'll take less than 2 minutes, but it will really add value to this conversation. So please follow up and let us know what you think.
Awesome. Have a great
Have a great day.
maybe long weekend, maybe Easter holiday for some of you. Take care.